All right, ready? I don't care about your feelings.
That was so odd. You'd be left of Lenin.
I can't believe you said that. Oh, jeez.
You have no power here.
What? Just two brothers.
It's just two brothers.
All right, we got another jam-packed episode of Just Two Brothers. I'm going to talk about a few things that are waiting, a little bit of weight hitting our American psyche right now. There's been a lot of action over the last week. One of the big things that's happened is there's a little bit of discussion in Texas regarding a groundbreaking abortion law. It seems kind of ridiculous to me in the first place that needs to be a law about it. To be honest, I don't think anybody out there is really going to question what my opinion is on that subject. But we can discuss what has happened and what's changed there. From what I understand here, there's a change as far as the timeline that they're going to allow. What did they go to? 6 weeks? They're going to allow abortions only after 6 weeks. The argument from the left is always that, they want to go, abortion on demand up until and after birth. There was a state that pushed that. Well, I don't remember what state that was. Maybe you might remember that, but
I mean, if I had to guess off the top of my head, it would be California or New York, or both.
Man, I want to say it was like Virginia or something. It was a different state. I'll see if I can find that.
So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
But it's a little surprising to me that it's groundbreaking because, I mean, you're literally killing another person. I think if they're going to legalize that, then we should just be able to, shoot people. Like, why is that any different? The 6 week thing, it was kind of before that happened. They talked about doing 6 weeks, and what is it, like they say like 80% of women don't know that they're pregnant before 6 weeks. So it wasn't a big deal to the lefties then, and then all of a sudden a law comes through that bans it up until that point, and then now they're up in arms about it. I think one of the greatest things that's happened is you had two really good responses to it right away. The NCAA said they're not going to have the basketball national championships in Texas. I'm going to cry all night about that. That's going to keep me up. Man, I'm really bent and just, I don't know what I'm going to do. But what's even better than that actually is, I don't know if it's the city of Portland or if it's the state. Is it the state of Oregon?
No, I'm pretty sure it's the city of Portland is going to try not allow any travel or maybe even commerce. I think that's as far as it went, as they were saying that they weren't even going to allow commerce between them and Texas.
I really should have researched that a little bit, dug into how much commerce does the state of Texas do with Portland, Oregon? and on top of that, what direction does that go? I would suspect most of that would go from Texas to Oregon. Would be my guess. I wouldn't think that there would be hardly anything from Oregon to Texas. And I can tell you what the sentiment is in Texas. So for people watching that don't know, I live in Texas. I'm not originally a Texan. I was not born here. The sentiment in Texas is that people of Portland can stick it. Like, we don't care. We really don't care. Go ahead. I mean, even without them having this ridiculous reaction to a very good abortion negotiation, which is something I don't like in the first place. I think I've been very clear about my opinions of negotiating. Typically, it only helps the left. But then again, you can already see the writing on the wall, just like we discussed before, that okay, this is a win for the conservatives, or they're chalking it up as a win, but the fight is not over. They play the long game. They are going to play the long game. They're going to go abortions up until, I'm going to say, at a minimum a few hours after birth, maybe even days is what they would like to do. And that's where their push is going to be. People are pretty happy because it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, Texas can do that, which every state should be able to do whatever they want. In my opinion, it's not a social. The federal government's job is not to push a social agenda, what anybody's opinion is. It's supposed to be neutral ground, which is not what the case is. And depending on the administration that's in at the time, really depends on, and that's no secret of what's happening here. The leftists have control. They're going to push it and push it and push it and push it. And I just really enjoy seeing it on a state-to-state level. Bring it. Do you think Texas really cares about what Portland thinks? I mean, come on. We don't care at all. You know what? Take California out. We don't care about that either. We'd like to build a wall between Texas and California, to be honest.
Yeah, I think about half the country wouldn't mind seeing just California just kind of float away. So, to your point there, when you're talking about the federal government, I mean, I know it's kind of been thrown out of the books, but the 10th Amendment is pretty clear in that the powers derived that, aren't given directly from the Constitution are supposed to go to the states. Now, I know that we have pretty much, for some reason, we've thrown that away, and the people have been okay with that. But, this is a specific scenario, especially when it comes to, abortion law, where it should be left up to the state. The federal government has no standing. I know that the people are going to come out and try and say, oh, well, Roe v. Wade. They somehow tried to read a woman's right to kill someone else in the Constitution. I have no idea where they found that. I know that this probably won't lead to Roe being overturned. Okay, but if it leads us to a spot where we get to talk about this and renegotiate it, I think would be a really good thing for everybody. Because, to be honest, I haven't heard one good argument about why abortion should even be legal. I haven't heard one. Yeah, go ahead and say, here's what the argument's going to happen. If I were to talk to someone on the left about this, they would start by saying, yeah, but what about in rape and incest? And right there, you already know that they've lost the ground and that they have no true moral argument, because they have to go to 1%, less than 1% of the cases.
It's exceedingly rare. It's exceedingly
to try and justify the whole thing. That's just not how it works. After that, once you peel away that layer, you really get down to the truth, which is, okay, is that a life or is it not? And yes, you can say that you're just a clump of cells. Well, let me tell you, as an anatomy professor, we're all just clumps of cells. We're all sacks of water too. So if you really want to, distill human nature down to just that, well, guess what? Then there is no difference. And, the next part of it, most of these people have never actually looked at a diagram of how a baby develops, how an infant develops. Because if you look at that, there is no way that you can look at that diagram and say, oh yeah, it's a human there, definitely not a human there. I don't buy it. I haven't heard a single good argument. Yeah, go ahead and try and say the next one. The next one is you're going to try and say that, oh, it's somebody else feeding off of another, almost as if a parasitic relationship. Or, if I were to hit someone in the road and they're dying, I don't have to give them my blood to save them. Okay, that's another argument. Yeah, that might be true. You don't have to give them your blood, but you cannot kill that person either. You cannot actively go over there and say, oh, well, he looks done. Ping! Because that's what happens in an abortion. You go in and you tear the baby limb from limb. So.
Well, the people that really push the agenda of this right to choose, one part of that is really always just kind of circles around in my mind because I can't really understand, and you got to be careful trying to understand leftism and liberals. It is the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over again and trying to get a different result. The end result is always that it just doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of times very, very little logic behind it. And where I was going with that is the people that really, really support that are also the people who are very much talking about the race card and how everything's racist and everybody's racist and critical race theory needs to be taught. And they like to just gloss over the inconvenient fact of the origin of Planned Parenthood. Now, you're welcome to look this up, anybody out there who doesn't believe me, but Margaret Sanger had a very tight tie to the KKK in America. And by her own autobiography, she chose abortion as a way to keep the minorities a minority class. That was done deliberately.
I know who Margaret Sanger is. And I know that she believed in eugenics and that she was not particularly enamored with black people. And one of the reasons that you find most of their clinics in black neighborhoods is so that you can find a way to control that population. And I think people should go back and read about Margaret Sanger, who founded this place, a woman who Hillary Clinton, by the way, says that she admires.
And it just blows my mind that you have people who support that and are so anti-racist, but by supporting Planned Parenthood, you are directly supporting racism in America. There is no denying that. There is no workaround by, the lefty magic word manipulation to manipulate that. You can't even say, the Hail Mary pass of context because it's in her own autobiography. She says it herself. And they like to put it under the guise of women's health. That is not women's health. It is directly a result of trying to control a minority population. And that's it. That's there's no argument to it.
Come on now. You know that they're just going to try and use context when it's politically convenient.
Oh, yeah.
Context.
Well,
yeah.
They took that out of context.
Oh, yeah. I think that they take most of history out of context.
Is that deliberate?
Yes, of course it's deliberate. You can read it in the CRT in the book. It literally says part of their mission is revisionist history. So yeah, that just means we're going to rewrite history into whatever context that we want it. So yes, they are taking everything out of context.
Well, revisionist history is a new thing. Nobody's ever done that before.
Oh, I don't think it's new because, the original SJW in, Adolf Hitler and his buddy Mussolini both practiced it. So did Stalin.
What?
Oh, yeah, you didn't know this?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yes.
No, it's just that nobody's tried it the right way yet.
Yeah, nobody's tried revisionist history the correct way yet.
Nobody's tried it the right way. We just got to try it the right way.
Oh man.
The whole thing happening in Texas is, I'm usually a little bit pessimistic about any change, right? Like I don't believe that the backbone of conservatives is strong enough. I don't think we play a long game well enough. I don't believe that conservatives see this as a battle, like as a real deal battle. There is very, very real consequences, and I think that gets glossed over a lot of the time. And so my view is that, you may have a little battle here, but the war is ongoing and we are completely missing the battlefield. However, with this, and it's not as much the subject matter. I mean, I do have very strong feelings about abortion and what should be legal and what, not even what is legal, what is right and what is not right. However, with this, I don't see it so much as the subject. I see this as one of the, in recent times, one of the greatest states' rights pushbacks that we've seen. I can't remember a single thing that has that much gravity as far as states' rights pushback. And I just hope that the state of Texas really has the wherewithal and the gumption of what it's going to take to actually push this stuff through, because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. The Biden administration is saying already that, that's their Texas's ruling isn't going to stick. So they're already looking for some healthy, federal government overreach. That's where they are with it. The left just loves government overreach. Like, man, that's.
I hope Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair just because of how big of balls he has, because that's what he's going to need here. Seriously though, he's going to have, and Merrick Garland, I believe, already opened a lawsuit into this. So he's going to have to stand his ground, and he absolutely will. One, I just wanted to touch back on the Portland issue because something just came to me. What was it? It was Texas the election integrity deal where Texas tried to sue, what state was that? Was it Pennsylvania? Texas tried to sue a different state.
Texas tried to sue Pennsylvania. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, Texas tried to sue Pennsylvania, and they said that Texas had no standing to sue. So I fully expect that Portland has no standing if they were to ever try a lawsuit, or Oregon in general, if they ever tried a lawsuit against Texas. I expect the exact same ruling. They have no standing here. You have no power here.
Well, I don't know. I guess I haven't heard that they want to actually file a lawsuit from state to state. I don't know. See, when Texas filed that against Pennsylvania, the justification for the lawsuit was that, hey, you didn't follow your state's legislation, you didn't follow your own state's constitution, and that affected our presidential election. So they were affecting them. Where, man, it's hard to say that, oh, well, you're, really awesome law in Texas that you're sticking up against the federal government with. That's really going to affect people in Portland. I don't know how you can connect the dots on that. I know with a lot of these liberal, judges and whatnot, you don't really need to make a good argument. They're just going to make it for you. So I think the reality is that Texas is going to see a lawsuit from the Biden administration is where I think it's going to come from.
It is. Didn't it already happen? Did Merrick Garland? I thought he already issued one. Man, that dude's busy. He's been suing states left and right because I believe he sued Florida over the education deal too. Man.
Probably. I guess I haven't followed up on him that much as an individual. I guess
he's a douche.
I haven't done that. Oh, well, yeah. Who put him in office? The douche king.
Oh, well, at least on the bright side, the left people against the abortion law, at least they got the Satanic Temple on their side.
Just in case people were wondering what side is right and wrong and what morality to choose, about this issue. Let's follow the Satanists. They seem to have their stuff together. They really seem to have some good morals and beliefs that, should be outreaching to people who call themselves Christians and then support abortion, especially abortion on demand and crazy lunatic stuff. You know what? We'll just team up with the Satanists on this one. That sounds like a good plan. Well, aren't they trying some sort of lawsuit or something about this too?
They are suing them. Yes, they have a letter. The temple argues that the abortion pill should be available to use through the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Yep.
So I've read a little bit about Satanism, about those people, because it's so bizarre. I didn't get into it very deeply, obviously, but I read enough to where one of their premises for justification is that their religion is based on the person. They say that as an individual, you are your own God. So if you're using that as the basis for your religion, that means that anything that you say or believe or do or concoct or just whatever, according to that, would have religious connotations to it, right? Because it's kind of an on-the-fly kind of thing. I'm my own God, so I can create whatever I want, however I want, whenever I want, and whatever I say is. It's part of the leftist dream, to be honest with you. I'm a lady today. Tomorrow I might be a horse. I mean, you can just, whatever you make up, whatever you say causes it to exist. And that's really, from what I gathered, the basis of that religion is, and I'm sure that there's some people who are followers of that religion who are going to have some just wonderful comments for us. But I mean, that's fine. I kind of really don't care what your opinion is. You're going to see shortly that that's a reoccurring theme of our show. I'm the one that really doesn't care about what you say to me.
Well, as far as I know, it's the ultimate elevation of the self, right? That's kind of Satanism. As to your point, you are your own God, meaning that you elevate yourself above everything else, and everything that you do in your own self-interest is honestly religious. So this means that, when it comes down to it, abortion, sacrificing your child at the altar of the self because it might be an inconvenience to you, it might ruin your life, any excuse that you can make, they're all going to be in interest of the self. And so it is an inherent satanic ritual. It's no wonder that they claim this, because it has to be one of the most sacred rituals within the religion. There's one thing that, I just kind of wanted to talk about here, because, we can talk about the specifics of abortion and the morality of it, but, do we really have to look any further than some of the people that support it? Who was it? Margaret Sanger, that was one of the original founders of Planned Parenthood, did it for eugenics reasons and to keep the minority population down, keep them a minority. Add in that you have support from many white supremacists. Add in that you have support from the likes of the Satanic Temple. Add in support from, honestly, the Chinese government, because, they had the whole two-baby law for how many years, where, they...
Actually, I believe that was one. They went to one child there for a while.
One child.
And just to be clear, I don't want to get too far off subject here. It wasn't a strict, you can only have one child thing. It's that there was a tax for every additional child, and it was ridiculously high. Because communism.
But my point is that if you look throughout the history of this whole abortion movement, it has not been supported by people of any type of ethical standing, or anybody that is really worth following, in my opinion.
No. I mean, think of that subject matter. I mean, just think of how bizarre your argument gets to try and justify something so ridiculously ridiculous. They use all this just complete lunacy. And to go back to support of the Satanist thing, they believe that you should have total control over everything, every aspect of your life at every level, because it is as you said, the ultimate personification of the self. So it really gets to be probably the single most selfish thing a person can do. I don't know what else would be more selfish. I just don't see, as you said, any person that is truly admirable. I really don't see them going along with this at all. And no, Nancy Pelosi is not an admirable person. You can argue that however you want to argue. Good old nasty Piglosi is not a person I admire. I like how you brought up China. You talked about, how that's a favorite move of a dictatorship or communist government. They did it for population control, which is part of the reason why Margaret Sanger thought it was a great idea. She wanted to control a specific population. They just want to control a population in general, along with everything to do with their lives. But to touch on that a little bit farther, China's been making some moves here lately. Like they've been busy. They've been busy changing what people are allowed to do, in a way that I don't know that I'll admit I didn't see this one coming. I didn't see that coming. They've banned feminine men from TV, and that can be everything from broadcasters to musicians to different personalities who may be in TV or movies or music. Anything to do with that kind of effeminate. Yeah, I guess I really equate it to kind of the K-pop kind of culture thing, where there was a thing that happened in the United States in the 80s with, glam metal, where it was the most femmy men you could get would, get all the girls, which is just really backwards. It's ridiculous and some horrible music, in my opinion. But China is going as far to saying that's just not allowed. And I've thought about this quite a bit, actually, that why would they say that? Why would they want to do that? Why would they want to ban that? Why? Because they're saying they need to defeminize their men. Why? Why is it? I mean, especially, I don't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like, is it 70% male or some ridiculous number that their population is mostly male? Because during the baby thing that you were talking about, they were aborting primarily female babies because everybody wanted their one child to be male to carry on the family name and all the stuff that goes along with that. But why would that be important on a mostly male population? I haven't came to an answer. Why is that important to them?
Really? I think we both can make at least an educated guess here. They're trying to build up the military.
I have tons of guesses.
I think that's
tons
the
of
most
guesses, and
obvious
I think you're actually absolutely right. I think they want to avoid a woke military.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we see wokeification of our military, and I really don't want to rag on our military too much because we're coming out.
No, I agree with you. I don't want to do that either. There's definitely a segment, and you always have to keep in mind that the liberals are really good at looking like a large number. So when you have woke people and LGBTQWTF, whatever it is, that are voicing their opinion in the military, I always keep in mind that that's a very, very, very small percentage of the population. So by no means, when I say that America has a woke military, or we say America has a woke military, or is beginning to be that way, I do not want it to be taken as a hit against our soldiers in any way. I have a ton of respect for those people, and I understand that it's a very small minority of our military. But to your point, I think that's probably where they're going with this. It's the only logical answer, because it can't be. I can't think of any other reason.
Unless Xi Jinping is like, we're gonna outlaw this because I don't like seeing it. I can't think of any other reason. And with the obvious aggression against Hong Kong, with the obvious aggression that they're starting against Taiwan, and what is certainly to come in the future. And with their aggression now going into the area of Afghanistan, it really, I'm pretty sure that this is happening because they're trying to build up their military, and they're trying to masculinize their military.
Yeah, that's the only answer I really have. It's just really interesting to have them make it like a law. As an American, I find that interesting. You know what I mean? I find it interesting as an American. If you put your mind in the place of a communist, no, it's not surprising at all, because they'll just make laws and they don't care about, the people or whatever. It's definitely not ruling for the people. But when to think of something like that taking place in the United States, that hey, we're gonna straight up ban a part of culture because the government doesn't like it. I mean, they even took it a step further now, and I would be really curious to see how that would fly in the United States when they're saying that you can only play video games for 3 hours on a weekend? Is that what it is? Is it 3 hours?
Yeah, I believe it's 3 hours, and it's weekdays, Monday through Thursday. They're not allowing video games to be played.
So it's only a Saturday or Sunday? Or is it just a Saturday? I thought it was just Saturday.
1 hour a day on Fridays, weekend and public holidays.
Okay, well, the one thing I did notice is it does say no online video games. And I've seen that in a couple of things where it says no online. I guess I haven't dug into it deep enough to see if it's just no video games. I don't know how they'd know. Well, I mean, they could know. What do they say? They have like 100 million cameras, or I don't know. They have some ridiculous amount of cameras.
They know.
So they might know.
Come on, they know.
But yeah, I don't. And then what they do is they say, I mean, could you imagine that in the U.S.? Could you imagine if they did that in the United States? I know of adult men the largest part of their existence involves playing video games.
It's asinine. Come on, let's be honest. It's asinine, but it's when you're a communist party. All the ones that we know of. We're not talking about the hypothetical communism that hasn't been tried. We're talking about the real life communism, where it is an extremely authoritarian government who does whatever is best for that government or whomever is running that and the aspirations that they have. Your life is just in service of that. It is never in service of the individual. And it's, if we thought about that here, I mean, we would be having uprisings. Reddit would explode.
It would be an uprising of people who have no clue how to actually go through with an uprising.
Yeah, right, man. They got they got plenty of online video games. They're probably excellent at it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. When you see these guys running around and freehanding a Barrett in Call of Duty, I'd like to see any one of those boys try that in real life. They'd cry all day.
What, you don't think they'll just quick scope it?
Yeah, I got me a Desert Eagle. I've never actually fired a pistol before, but we'll pick up a 50 cal. I mean, that uprising, I think, would be fairly short-lived. One of the things I did find a little bit interesting was they call that they're fighting or combating video game addiction, and they say that that's to blame with some societal ills and making people forget about family responsibilities. That one thing, the family responsibilities thing, I find a little bit interesting, because communism hates family unit, right? It's a one mind, it's kind of like that hive think mentality. So I find it really interesting that they're using that as justification for it, to say people, they're not involved with their families, or it's kind of the breakdown of a family or family responsibility, however they want to word that. I wonder if that's really just in the front for them to try and put a good spin on it, or if they have kind of a bigger plan, because it's weird that they're saying we want to defeminize our men and we also don't want them to play video games.
It's kind of interesting that China is doing this, and they're saying that it's to combat an addiction, as in a health problem. They're using a health problem and as an excuse to take away a freedom. Because, hey, we got to combat this health problem. It's for your own safety. It's for your own good.
Well, it's as long as it's for the greater good, we're willing to give up any freedoms. You just give them away.
Oh, as long as it's in the service of public health and it's in the service of, you're saying that this is for my own protection? Well, then, and by all means, here, do you want everything I own? I mean,
the only thing is you have to keep in mind a little bit. I mean, we take a very American view on that, right? I mean, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that said something to the effect of, no amount of security is worth sacrificing freedom. And Chinese will never look at it that way, ever. They'll never look at it that way, ever. They're just, it's what the government says, and a lot of it's out of fear. They're gonna do what the government says because the ramifications for not following the rules are very steep.
The exact quote is, "Those who would exchange freedom in exchange for temporary security receive neither."
In the long term, they absolutely receive neither.
Without a doubt. I would almost say temporarily. Do you really receive either? I'm not sure about that. Also, I just kind of want to bring up in that ABC article talking about this whole China banning the sissy men from TV. Not me saying sissy men. That is their telecommunications saying sissy men. That is what they're calling them. He also said he's calling for a national rejuvenation. This is all under the guise of what this is all under. It's all under national rejuvenation. With tighter Communist Party control of business, education, culture, and religion, companies and the public are under increased pressure to align with their vision. But he also goes in and talks about, yes, here it is. Xi Jinping's government wants tighter control over Chinese internet industry, and it has launched an anti-monopoly, data security, and other enforcement actions against games and social media providers. And I just find that really interesting that a communist government is issuing an anti-monopoly decree against someone, because government itself, and especially in the case of communist government, has a monopoly on force against disarmed citizens. They are a monopoly. And I just find that kind of interesting. So I assume that there are some internet companies within China that just aren't doing their bidding.
Well, they've had a fight against, they don't like private business the way it is. I guess part of this could be just an excuse to go after internet companies that they don't have their hands in. I mean, like you said, we got this public safety issue, we got to go after you, and we don't like the monopolies you have either. That's kind of funny that's been a subject matter in the United States, as of late as well, is the big tech boys and how they have a monopoly over certain things, which we touched on a little bit in our last episode, how the freedom of speech gets tied into platforms that are privately owned and they get spun into an individual agenda. I don't really think that there's a platform in China that allows anybody to say anything about the government at all. I would suspect that doesn't happen like it does in the United States. Where here we can say so far we can say whatever we want about the government, and we do have a constitutional amendment that is very high on the list of amendments that allows us to do that. So far, that the Democrats would really love punishment for people like us that say how completely ridiculous and stupid they are. I don't see that being the case in China. I think that it's either a money grab for them, or it's being used as justification. They don't really need justification, but for a global justification on why they're doing that.
Their justification is because we said so. That's their
Oh yeah, that's all the justification they need. Yeah, yeah.
Because
Any questions? Any questions? I mean, you don't ask them. You don't ask them questions at all. I mean, they're gonna do their own thing, and you better toe the mark, or they'll take care of you in one way or another. I just a person could talk about what happens in China here, for a long. I mean, you could just talk about this forever and ever and ever, and I find it really, really ridiculous when you say that, the government is directly against businesses, especially smaller businesses. They want to have total control over that, but at the same time, we've seen that here, especially over the last couple of years, where they only want to have a handful of large businesses and get rid of the freedom that small businesses provide, especially for small business owners, and especially for the employees of small business owners, which is still, the largest percentage in the United States. You see that kind of dwindle happen. So I always kind of enjoy comparing the U.S. and China. It can be kind of a predeterminer, of kind of things to come, because they are kind of the open test for Democrat ideas right now, which is crazy. They say, not all Democrats are socialists, but all socialists are Democrats. I think that's a term that gets used from time to time, and it's true. It's very much true.
Yeah, it's really too bad. We could spend, honestly, we're going to spend plenty more episodes coming up in the future talking about China, talking about all of their human rights violations, talking about the moves that they're making, talking about their crackdown on Hong Kong, talking about their crackdown and what it will inevitably be, in my opinion, Taiwan. It's just a matter of time, but it's really too bad, and I find it really interesting when we talk about the American left. So many just have no idea what is exactly going on over there. At least much of the left that I've talked to, a lot of the foreign policy seems to just not click, or they're not exactly interested in it, and they're much more interested in domestic policy. But I just find that kind of interesting, just because. You can see so many. If you never compare America to anything that else is around it, you're just going to assume that America is an outlier, or you're not an outlier. You're going to assume that everywhere else is better, and it's the exact opposite. And so, I just find that interesting, and I almost think that it's on purpose, that the deliberate veil pulled over the eyes of, hey, don't look over here at China. We don't want to look over there. Oh, Cuba, yeah, that was our fault. It was the Cuban embargo that caused their communist government, or it's the Cuban embargo that makes their life so bad over there. Oh yeah, don't look at Venezuela. We only want you to look at Sweden or Denmark. And even though they themselves would not even call themselves socialist.
You bring up Sweden and Denmark, and they like to talk about Norway, and I won't delve into this too deep, but Norway is probably one of the most capitalist countries in the world. They have privatized everything. Yeah, they have healthcare. Everybody has healthcare, and it's done privately. Road construction, all of these services that socialists think that the government should provide. The government in Norway provides funding for many of these things, but it's done on a bid basis. It's done, they privatize literally everything that can be privatized, because guess what? The government sucks at running anything. They are terrible at it. There's nothing that the government does better than private industry. Literally nothing. Not even military. Again, I don't want to dig on our military because I have a lot of respect for those people, but a lot of them end up being private military contractors, because guess what? It pays way more, and it's done more efficiently. So the socialist stronghold of the Nordic countries is a huge lie. It's a huge lie. It doesn't take much, investigation at all to find out that they have privatized everything. because it makes it vastly more affordable. I would love to see our federal government be privatized right down to nothing, to be honest with you. That's not a very popular opinion, but I don't care. I really don't care. You know, we're talking about, you know, you can make those comparisons against the United States and China and you know, the veiling of, oh, you know, take these pieces and that pieces. And well, where's the source of those pieces come from? Where's the source of that, you know, we're going to look at the good things. There's very few of them. None, in fact. But we're going to spin this in a good way that, you know, Cuba was, you know, that was our doing, and all the excuses that come up. I mean, where's the source of that mindset, you know, to get people to accept that? It's an education system. That is absolutely the source of that. You know, there's public education, which is just a breeding ground of Democrat ideas and indoctrination. But I think we're going to talk about the colleges here just for a minute.
Some good news came out, actually.
What good news?
This is Wall Street Journal reporting. They're saying that at the close of the 2020-2021 academic year, women made up about 60% of the college students, which is an all-time high, and men have dropped down to nearly 40%. And that's enrollment.
I believe that was graduates, wasn't it? Wasn't that 60% of graduates? I believe it was 60% of graduates from the 2020-2021. Wow, that's weird to say. Class was almost 60% female.
I'm not sure if it was. I just see this data coming from the National Student Clearinghouse. Yeah, it's honestly, in my opinion, as a college professor, good. Not everybody needs a college degree. And the thought that, you know, kind of our parents or, you know, generations before us that, hey, you need to go to college. There's no, it's part of the American way to success. Without it, you're going to be in the gutter. That was such a clever lie. And the fact that we just ate that up is something that I really don't agree with. Yeah, the amount you pay to get told much information that you already know. Not on top of that, you know much of the information that they're going to tell you. You know, if you're a white male, guess what?
You're evil.
You're
Your
evil.
toxic masculinity is destroying the world. You know, and it's not just that 60% were women. It's that there's a decline in colleges across the board. You know, they say there's 1.5 million less students. You know, and men accounted for 71% of the decline in enrollment. And I you know, you said it's a thing for you know, a generation before, and I can tell you in my generation it was strongly, you know, hey, you got to go to college. You're never going to get a good paying job if you don't go to college, which makes our discussions a little bit more interesting because you have far more education than I do, and it's really I think a good chunk of that decline. I think it's a two-part thing. I really do. I think that, you know, the trades are paying. I mean, I know welders that make $100 an hour. And I know people with master's degrees that make 20% of that.
How much do I make?
And I think I got you beat right now with a lot less education. But I think that's led to part of that because it doesn't take much to. I mean, of course you're going to have men, just men in general. When the trades pick up and they're paying better, I can make $100 an hour as a welder. I can make, you know, $50 an hour, $60 an hour as a plumber. You know, you can do in these trades, you can make that kind of money. I mean, why? You know, who's going to be the first people that get into more trades? It's going to be the men. So I don't think that should really surprise anybody that hey, you know, there's more men going, you know, not going to get bachelor's degrees and master's degrees because they can make more money. And it's not even you make a little more money. I mean, it's drastic. You know, like I said, you know, a plumber that makes $60 an hour, or an electrician that makes that, he didn't spend $200,000 for a degree. You know, one of the things that we've talked about before is you know, and I don't want to hit on any one group of people, but there's a real misconception on especially physical therapists. That's an expensive degree to get, and yeah, it's a good job, but man, they really don't make much compared to how expensive that degree is. I mean, it is very expensive. You know, $200,000 to make 80 grand a year, 90.
The other problem is that you're limited. You're limited in the amount of money that you can make for the most part. So, yeah. Well, I mean, the amount of patients that you can see, firstly, we're talking real specifics here, you know, but I believe you have to have your master's in PT to even own a physical therapy clinic.
And I think that's going to be a little bit dependent on state. That's probably going to be a state to state kind of thing. Different states have different rules, but
as far as I know, that's how it is in many states. That you do need a master's degree to own your own clinic. Now,
you know, one of the other things I think that has contributed to the decline, especially in, you know, with men and white men, is all of the largest amount of available funding is geared towards women and minorities. So, I mean, if you have to pay a premium on top of what would regularly be there, it's just the incentive is kind of gone. I believe you've had some experience with that in that specific situation, you know. And again, I don't want to like hit on like, oh, you know, woe was me, or you know, all the white men are having this problem. It's really a problem that goes back to what I said earlier. The government does nothing well, and those types of regulations have been they're inventions of the government, and that's why you get in this situation. The colleges have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Oh yeah, you can't do anything without you know, having a master's degree. You know, you can't make over $100,000 a year unless you're a doctor. Not true at all. And I think you got to see some of that firsthand.
Well, I definitely did. I assume you're talking about my stint with medical school and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has spent any significant amount of time looking at higher education and whatnot, especially as it comes to like things like medical school, you know that they play games. And when I say they play games, I mean that what they try and do. Here's what their reasoning is. So these medical schools will try and say, we need to have a population that within our school, within our student body, that mimics the population that we'll be serving. Okay, on the surface of that might make sense. You know, let's say your University of Minnesota Duluth. Okay, they're very they want people who will go there and stay there and work with the tribal communities. Okay, so that's kind of the population that they want to drag in. But the problem is that everyone knows this, and it's a joke amongst medical school applicants. We all know the game that they're playing. They want you to stay there. So I am gonna say whatever I have to get into the school. Oh yeah, do you know what really? When I was growing up, I wanted to go be a doctor in the Native community. Nothing against them, that just wasn't for me, but that's what I would tell a medical school because that's what they want. And they want that because they're trying to get this demographic that matches the population that they're trying to serve. The problem is, here's where theory meets reality. They have no control of where their doctors go after they've graduated. It's just the hard facts of it. And so that really then begs the question of, well, why is it not just merit-based? Because it isn't. Medical school and much school, higher education in general is not merit-based. Never was. Well, it was at one point. But once affirmative action came through, extremely, by definition, racist law came through, it really changed the game, and it follows in that critical race theory line of thinking, in that, discrimination yesterday needs to be solved by discrimination today. And I don't even have to give my personal story on what happened here. These are just truth. You can go online. You can go to there's a little website called Lizzie M Score. They changed this now, but back in around 2015, you used to be able to go in there and select your MCAT and your GPA and your race and your gender. You would be able to select those things, and then it would tell you the odds that you're going to get into medical school.
So you're saying that there's issues
when you change.
Oh, when you change one of the factors.
When you change those demographics. These are facts.
So you're saying non-merit based advancement is a bad idea? So you mean selecting a vice president based on race and gender and not qualifications is not smart?
Hey, why don't you select your pilots based on different things besides their merits as well?
It's been invented qualifying factors. A while back, I think we had a discussion. I know we've had a discussion about this a while back, but I think I used an example of, okay, if you're getting onto an airplane, onto a commercial airplane in very adverse conditions, and they bring out two pilots. One of them has the best aviation degree from the best school. He was the number one guy. He is the genius. This kid has got it going on. Or you have a veteran that never really went to any sort of academy per se, but man, he could fly in some bad stuff. And he might not even have the health that younger guy has. But which one of them are you going to want to pilot that plane through that storm? You're going to want the guy that actually earned his merits. Especially when it gets based on arbitrary things that really have nothing to do with qualifications whatsoever. I mean, you literally said that people are completely lying about their own beliefs to try and get into medical school. I mean, think of how absurd that is. I mean, since when did the colleges see it in their own minds and their own, that it's their duty to change the dynamic of who's qualified to do something completely arbitrary to what their actual skill set is? That is insanity. That is insanity, and that is part of the leftist dream and the leftist agenda, and guess where the lefties are?
I believe they're in education at roughly a 97-98% clip.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's college professors that absolutely agree that, like these groups like Antifa and BLM, I mean, they're right from the colleges. I really think a lot of the problems that we have with this extreme leftism, and not even so much extreme leftism, is just the idea that enlightened people exclusively vote on a liberal platform. It is a problem that we have. It's especially a problem because parents have their children become educated. Now that's from when they're little kids through public school or private school, however you want to do it. I think the private schools do a better job of not having just mass uncontrolled liberalism being dumped onto their children. But I've seen it, you've seen it, people watching this show have seen it, that you have a good conservative student, they go to a liberal college, and they come out a leftist fruitcake. I was on the phone talking to a friend of mine here today, and he was telling me about this article he read where this guy went and spent $180,000 in gender studies, and now he's furious that because of capitalist America, he can't find a job. Well, what job is there? I mean, and you know what I said? I'm like, yeah, that's really confusing. That's about as confusing as figuring out what gender you are. So it was just the whole thing is ridiculous, and you know darn well that his idea to do that was completely supported by that college. They knew, all right, we're going to get a bunch of money out of this idiot, and there's nothing he can do with it. Maybe he can be a professor or something somewhere, but right now, the whole genderism is just being pushed by these colleges, and they're one of the biggest problems I think we have in our country right now. So it's no surprise to me that they've seen a reduction in people going there, because there's other options to attract people. They aren't playing an even game with everybody, and I think people are a little bit sick of the liberalist cesspool that a lot of these colleges have became.
Well, no doubts. I can tell you from experience that these colleges, they want to claim that they're extremely diverse and that they put diversity as the core of their mission statement. But when they say diversity, what they truly mean is just outside diversity, just ethnic diversity. What they actually don't mean is diversity of thought or diversity of ideology. And it really blows my mind when you talk about diversity and you say, oh, we really care about diversity and we care about ethnic diversity, but what we actually have to have is ideological homogeneity. And it blows my mind. That's not real diversity, in my opinion. And honestly, I am so sick of the colleges, and maybe my expressing my resentment towards it is probably somewhat related to why we're seeing this trend in a generation coming directly after me.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. It's just like an investment firm saying that we have diverse investments. It's just a pile of mutual funds. I mean, it's the same thing. It's not real diversification. These people may look different, but they all think the exact same way. And we almost, it's getting to be that the thought police subject coming back up again. And it's really unfortunate that people are going without that mindset and paying a huge sum of money to be indoctrinated, and a lot of them don't even realize it, and it's really unfortunate. But to move along, before we cut the show off here, I would really like to have a little shout out to all of our first responders and policemen and firefighters and EMTs and our soldiers that are out there protecting our freedom every day. We're shortly after 9/11 here, which was the largest tragedy in my generation for sure. And unfortunately, we have some people saying that this January 6th bull crap was worse than 9/11. I can't remember the senator or whoever it was that said that, and that's a load of crap. That is a load of crap in every direction. There's no way to spread that crap and to polish that turd and make it a reality. That is a straight up lie. They're these men and women who are out there fighting for our freedom, the freedom for us to say all of the ridiculous crap that we say, and on top of it, all of the liberals and Democrats pushing an agenda that goes against what those people do on a daily basis, risking their lives to do. I think it's disgusting that when we have politicians who downplay the EMT and firefighters and police that died, not even risked their lives, but there was so many that were killed on that day, and they downplay that. That is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I don't want to make this about trashing kind of the other side. I really just want to stick to big thanks to all of our first responders and to our military that we really don't deserve. They put their lives on the line so that we can live a nice, cush life that we all take for granted. And that's just the truth of it. We owe them a massive debt of gratitude, and it is what it is. I don't think it's something that we can ever kind of truly repay. But as much as it means, thank you so much.
And thank you to all of our service people, and as I said, the police officers, the men and women first responders, the EMTs, our firefighters. Thank you so much for everything that you do every day. I can't thank you enough for everything, because, I mean, let's face it, it's not something that I want to do, and it's not something that a lot of people want to do, but there is a group of people out there that are willing to do that and do it very well. I thank you. We both thank you. And this is going to wrap it up. This is another episode of Just Two Brothers in the Books.
It's just two brothers.
Because it's just two brothers. Thank you. And,
see you guys.
And that's another show. We're done.